CEO of Lonmin, Ben Magara. Thank you for joining us, Ben.
It's a pleasure, Francis.
I'd like to get to the whole housing issue, which is huge, and you said today is a challenge. But firstly, it has to be said that you came into Lonmin after this tragedy. I'm very interested to know, however, who do you believe was responsible? Which person, which groups, which groupings? Because there's been a lot of attempts to find accountability, but very vague findings thus far. I'm interested in your opinion.
Thanks, Francis. I think there will be lots of opinions around it, and I'm sure there's still many more that will come in the future. What I see in reality is that there are many stakeholders, and each one of them has to put a hand up and say, here is my part, and here is what I need to do differently. And that's what I tried to do when I joined Lonmin. And I think the unions, whether it was NAM, AMCU, Lonmin, the police, communities, other stakeholders, it's really been a concoction of challenges. And I think acknowledging that would make us move a lot forward. And that's what I believe we're doing.
Has Lonmin taken that responsibility? Because the Farlam Commission found two things quite specifically. That the company did not engage with workers to try and end the strike sufficiently, and that it did not protect workers. I mean, there's that story of those 6 security guards facing 300 mine workers. Has there or will there be a formal apology for that?
As you know, the Farlam Commission went through many details, and Lonmin lent its full support to it, and we committed fully to it. Clearly, when you look back, there's been many lessons that we have all learned. Our own security protocols have been upgraded and have been updated. We had policies and procedures that were not signed. We have made sure all that have been audited to make sure everything is right. If I look back in terms of the employees that you spoke about, Francine, clearly what I saw, and I have been in the mining industry now almost 3 decades here in South Africa since 1994, it was a journey or a migration for managers abdicating their role as managers of employees, abdicating that role to unions. And the effort that I went into with my team when I walked into Lonmin was actually to take that back, because they were our employees first before they were union members. And we've worked very hard to engage them. I spent the first week when I joined the company visiting underground, the plants, and engaging with them at the rock face to understand what would make them tick and whether they see the benefits of making a Lonmin success. So there are lessons that we've all learned from that, and I should hope. And the first thing I said when I joined the first commemoration in 2014, because that commemoration was actually 2013, was exactly a month after I had joined the company, was lending an empathy and saying to the widows, I'm sorry we can't bring back your husbands. I'm sorry we can't bring back your mothers and your fathers. But what we can help you is to improve your financial situation. And that's what we've been trying to do.
There is attempts to help with education, things like that, of the slain mine workers' children. Is that enough?
It is one step forward. I think our financial situation is well documented, and we're clearly in a very low PGM or platinum group metal prices regime right now. So therefore, there are constraints to what we can do. But indeed, 143 of those kids, all of them, are in school, and Lonmin is paying for them. I've just explained to somebody that the first graduate who has graduated in a BSc in agriculture has just graduated and is now doing his master's. So Manga Yawa is moving on. And many of them, I've just done a visit with Mr. Matunjwa to the Eastern Cape to visit all those kids in the schools to see how they are learning. And actually, we can't be their fathers, but at least we can give them some care. All the family members of our colleagues we lost in 2012, we committed to them and offered employment to one member of the family. Some widows chose for themselves to get the jobs, and some their brothers took jobs. They are working for Lonmin today. Apart from the pensions and the kind of topical services for funerals at that time, a lot has been done, and I haven't touched about housing and indebtedness. That's something I could talk about.
Well, I want to ask if it's all enough, because the Farlam Commission is suggesting that there was ethical liability, maybe even legal liability for the death, say, of those security guards, and there's been no major payment. Then we find yesterday the Amnesty International report saying that Lonmin, even though we know those squalid housing conditions contributed to the desperation of the mine workers, hasn't done much to change things, hasn't kept its own promises.
A lot has to be done, and we're going to have to do so much more. And I think that what Amnesty International has done is to be a conscience for society, and I respect them for that. But the one part I can tell you, in terms of the efforts we've put in since 2012, is we have converted all the 150 hostels that we had, where 18 men used to sleep and stay in one room each, as the history of South Africa that I do not have to redocument. We have converted all those, and I committed within a year that I arrived that by December 2014 we'll have done that. We have done that.
Do you mind if I stop you there?
That accommodation is there. Absolutely.
That was a commitment made apparently in 2006, according to the Social and Labour Plan.
Yes.
So Lonmin didn't make that commitment after Marikana. That was a commitment in 2006 that had not been met. What new commitments have been made and met?
Right. As I walked in, we donated land to the Department of Human Settlements, 50 hectares of land, which was serviced with infrastructure. The government committed 462 million rands to the partnership to build these houses. The phase one of that accommodation has been built and is now available for employees. I committed, with my organization, with the support of the board, 100 million rands a year to put into infill apartments. They have been constructed and they are standing today, proud of what is coming, but we're not there yet. So I think there is a lot of work that we have done. We've identified all the land, about 134 hectares in the Marikana Extension 5, 34 hectares we've identified in Moinoi, and all those who come in. And we are looking for all the developers, partnership with government and ourselves to make sure we can provide decent living conditions for our employees.
Final question there. What about the 5,500 houses pledged in 2006? Apparently 6,000 more houses pledged with no real materialization of that promise. How quickly will this be done? And Amnesty International is saying that Lonmin is saying this as an excuse. You know, we've got tough economic times, we need banks to come on board. Are you hiding behind that? Is every effort being made to meet these requirements?
The easy of evidence in mining is that our houses are plain on the table in the field around Marikana, and visits would be helpful for anyone to see what we have done and where we are today. So the 5,000 houses that were committed to in the SLPs of 2006, 1,200 were built before 2006. Only 321 of our employees took to home ownership schemes. Then we realized, as we did the 5,000, and said, let's build 3 model houses so that we can assess the appetite from our employees, because most of them are migrant workers who prefer to rent.
This has taken years.
That has all
and
been
years.
done. So therefore, we couldn't have delivered the 5,000 because the employees did not have the appetite for those. However, what we have done, as I say to you now, we have converted all the hostels. We are building infill apartments in the areas where we could continue to use the infrastructure, because there used to be 18 people in each one of those areas. We have done that. We have provided the 50 hectares. We've got more land that we're doing. I acknowledge the mining industry in South Africa, and the globe for that matter, where there's accelerated urbanization because everybody's looking for jobs. We have the challenge of ensuring decent accommodation for everybody who moves into those areas.
How would you, in finality now, describe your relationship with Lonmin workers? How were you received when you go and speak before these workers today, for example?
We've worked very hard at the relationships. The first week I joined Lonmin, the first day at 4:30 in the morning, I visited the first shaft, I spent the whole week from the 1st of July 2013 to this Friday. I spent that whole week visiting every worker, the rock face, understanding and explaining to them that I'm a miner. I have dug, I have drilled, I have blasted, I have pumped water. I know the conditions you're going through, but we do not kill each other. We listen to each other, and if we do, tell me what we must stop, start, or stay doing, and we will do exactly that. As I speak to you now, every Thursday, as long as I'm in South Africa, and predominantly I operate from here, I go underground, I go into the plants to visit the workers. So we have moved on in leaps and bounds, but of course, there's continue to going to be more. Right now, we have wage negotiations that are going on. They will be challenging, but I'm cautiously optimistic that the investment we have put in these relationships is going to make us walk through.
All right, and I hope we can have a different kind of discussion next year, maybe more progress made. Thank you for your time. Ben
It's a pleasure,
Magara,
Francis.
the CEO of Lonmin.